And welcome back. In this video I'm going to show you how to use absolute positioning when using the Witty library. Now, a disclaimer, this video is not about why you would use absolute positioning or static positioning or relative positioning, but it is really just a tutorial to show you how it is implemented using the Witty library. We're going to use two key methods that are part of a Witty widget: the set position scheme and set margin scheme, or set margin functions. I'll say it again: the set position scheme function and the set margin function. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I have a project and it is called positioning, and as you can see, we have the files already set up, and we have our default Witty widget template. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the Witty label, because this is really an extension of the Witty text. Now, when doing positioning of any type, you can use any widget. It can be a Witty text widget, a Witty push button, a Witty label. But in our case, we're going to continue to use the Witty text. And I need to include two header files. One is the Witty border class, and it is basically a value class that is going to be used for setting a border around a Witty widget, and the Witty CSS decoration style. And the Witty CSS decoration style enables us to use a limited set of cascading style sheets using the Witty library. I'm going to do a mini series on that class by itself, but just know we need this class to actually set a border around our widget. So now that we have that, I'm going to create two widgets. First one's going to be called box 1. I'm going to add it to our application root container. Second one's going to be called box 2. Add it to our root container. And I'm going to give it a heading of 3. I'm going to call it box 1 and box 2. Okay, so we have two widgets, and if we go ahead and compile, let's go ahead and just see what they look like so far. If we run that, see here, and I already have localhost up and running. I'm just going to do a refresh. As you can see, we have box 1 and box 2. We have an invisible box that we cannot see. So to enable us to see that, I'm going to stop the server. And the first thing I want to do is I want to use the set the decoration style for our widget. Now, the decoration style is an object, and it is part of the CSS decoration style class, the Witty CSS decoration style class. And basically, to use it, you do this, box 1, and we call the decoration style object, and it is of type Witty CSS decoration style. And we're going to use the method set border. Now, if we look at the documentation really quickly, we have the documentation here. We look up the Witty CSS decoration style, and as you can see, we have background color, background image, and we can set each one of those. What I'm looking for is to set the border, so we have set border, and if we click on it, it takes a object of type border. If we click on that class, and we're going to ignore the sides, this is the side flag. We're going to set all the sides by default. And the border class is a value class, and we just give it a style the thickness and the color for what we want to do. You can also do the style, the length, and the color. And I'm just going to call it directly. So what we're going to do is set border. It is a type border, so we're not going to create an object. We could. We're just going to set it. We're going to set the constructor directly. So it takes a value of, you can put in solid. If we go back to the documentation, you have a style. It is enumeration, so we do border and the style. So in our case, it's going to be solid, witty border solid. And we're going to give it a thickness. We go back, look at the constructor. It takes a width. In our case, it's going to be thick, witty border, thick. And a color. And that also is a value class. Here's witty color. And you can see it takes a string name, or you can pass in RGB numbers, or you can just do a global color. In our case, we're going to do a global color. And in this case, we're going to call it black. So that sets the border. And the next thing we want to do is look at our two methods. So the first one we're going to look at is set position scheme. And we're going to pass in the enumeration of absolute. And if we look at set position scheme, let's go back to the top. Just do a little bit of typing. Here's set position scheme. It is part of the witty widget. So if we look at this, there's the position scheme, and it is a enumeration. So you would pass in witty and the position scheme. In our case, it's going to be absolute. So we've done that. We also want to do set margin. Set margin takes two arguments: the length, which allows you to set the positioning itself, and here's the constructor. The constructor takes in a double, and it takes in another enumeration. It can be a pixel, it can be a percentage of the page. And actually, let's go ahead and just look at that. Do that every time. We look at witty length. And just look at the values here. We have a couple of different constructors. In our case, we're going to do this one that takes a double value and a unit. And look at the units we can use. It could be a font, EM, a centimeter, a millimeter, a point, pica, percentage, pixel. And if you look at the enumeration, you would just call witty length and the unit. In our case, we're going to use a pixel. So we're going to move it 100 pixels over to the left, and that argument can be the left, the top, the bottom, or the right. I'm going to do box 1, set margin again. We're going to do another 100 pixels. Type pick, and we're going to do it from the top. And if we just, let's see, and if we just save that, and let's go ahead and compile it and see what this first box looks like. So we set the border using the decoration style. We set the position scheme to absolute. And absolute means it will not flow within the normal flow of the page. Okay, let's do a refresh. And as you can see, because it doesn't flow with the rest of the root widget, we've moved it 100 pixels from the top and 100 pixels to the left. And we put a border around it so we can actually see what it looks like. And notice how it was resized. And so the next thing we want to do is just do box 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do copy and paste. Save on a little bit of time. And just change this to box 2. And we're going to do the same thing, but in this case we're going to move it a little bit over, a little bit more, 50 more pixels to the left. Still going to be 100 pixels from the top. And I also want to set the decoration style, so we're going to copy this. And we're not going to make it black, we're going to make it red. So instead of black for the color, I'm going to pass in red. I'm going to compile this. And if we run this, and as you can see, now box 2 has been pushed down 100 pixels from the top and 150 pixels from the left. And notice how, because it's absolute, it overlaps this widget right here, And the last thing I want to do to wrap this up is I'm going to move it over again. This time we're going to use 200 to the left. And let's just make this 125 pixels from the top. If we just compile that, and I did shut down the server when I did that. Okay, if we run the server, we do a refresh, and as you can see, 100 pixels from the top, or I should say, excuse me, 200 pixels from the top, or 200 pixels from the left, and 125 pixels from the top. So as you can see, if you want to create your own witty text or label or button, you can position your widgets any way you so desire onto the page. And notice how it's just fixed. So if we take the browser and just do this, it's fixed. It won't move. So that's how you use absolute positioning. Again, it's not a tutorial saying you have to use this. This is just showing you how it is implemented. I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye-bye.